Natasha Akpoti for 6 months for a total violation of the Senate Standing Rules 2023 as amended for bringing the presiding officer and the entire Nigerian Senate in general to public opprobrium. That for the Senate to consider lifting this suspension or reducing the tenure of the suspension, Senator Natasha Akpoti shall submit a written apology to the Senate before any reconsideration by the Nigerian Senate. That the Senate do suspend Senator Akpoti with effect from 6th day of March 2025 from all legislative activities forthwith. That her office be locked up for the duration of this suspension, and she should hand over all Senate properties in her possession to the clerk of the National Assembly. That for the duration of her suspension, she cannot come or be seen within the vicinity of the National Assembly, including her staff. That her salaries and allowances, including those of her legislative aides, be suspended, and withdrawal of all security details for the duration of her suspension. Yes, that for the period of her suspension, she be barred from representing herself to the public locally and internationally as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Never envisaged that a day like this will come in the life of the 10th Senate, but it has come. And we still have to do what we have to do in overriding public interests, because it's not about the single Senator Natasha and the Senate President. It's about the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, I sympathize with you. As a man being accused of sexual harassment, I am not going to comment on that because there will be an ample opportunity for the relevant authorities to deal with that. Section 40, subsection 4, of which also says, no senator shall personally sign a petition to be laid before this Senate.
If this is what is happening about character, then we have to expose the character of a petitioner.
You have it. So if you're meeting this content for the first time, please like, share, subscribe. The first thing I want to say is please watch this to the end, because I want to give you 7 reasons. I would say 6 reasons why Natasha Akpoti had no chance or stood no chance against Senator Godswill Akpabio, his schemes actually, and the Nigerian Senate. Now, humor me here by watching through to the end and seeing the 6 reasons I would mention, okay? And when you finish watching, you can tell me whether or not the 6 reasons are right or not, or if there are more, or you feel they're just not enough. So, but first of all, please like, share, and comment, but also put your comment in the comment section. Subscribe as well. We need your subscription so we can get this content in the hands of a lot more people. And then we can start to effect the change that we want. So the first reason, I mean, what you've heard, what you watched initially is the Senate President Godswill Akpabio, more or less reading out the 7 charges against Natasha Akpoti, if you may call them charges, violations as they call them. And then you then heard the Senate leader, Michael Bamitele Payemi, that's his name, and another senator talk about, Senator Natasha. If you recall, immediately after she submitted the petition, they started attacking her character. Actually, even before then, they started attacking her character. They went back to her history to discredit her anyway before Nigerians. So that's another one. So, but for me, I thought what had happened in the Senate was a lot more than what we're seeing in the public. So I thought when I watched the entire suspension speech, I took note of the 7 reasons why they're suspending her for 6 months, inclusive of that. And I wanted to think deeper. Obviously, with the strategies here, so we think deeper and then we look at why we think she didn't have a chance. Initially, I thought she didn't have a chance anyway, but I wanted to wait until we see further notice. But I remember if you go to a previous comment, videos, you'll see we already mentioned something like that. Why would have not, she didn't have a chance. Now, the first one is a very obvious one. She came up against the Senate president without, concrete evidence. That's the very first thing. When she got on the news and she made that allegation that at least she's not produced the evidence yet. It was meant to be my word against our word kind of thing. So that's why I say she doesn't have concrete evidence yet. Because sexual harassment is actually quite difficult to prove if you don't have the evidences to show for it. Okay. So that's the number one bit. So she came up with against the Senate president, who happens to be the number 3 person in the nation. The president, the vice president, and the Senate president. Before you go to the, I think the speaker. So the president, the vice president, and the number 3 man in the nation is the Senate president. So you want to come against the Senate president, who we all know that Nigerians don't really like, and somebody who have been in the system. And you can hear all through the 7 readings, you can see how vindictive and personal it was to Godswill Akpabio. But she didn't provide concrete evidence to say, this is what happened. I have proof to show that. It was more about my word against your word. That's number one. I think for time purpose, I will try and go through it quicker enough. I think it's going to be 7 actually. But let's get there first. That's first. So the second part is that she fell for Akpabio's schemes. Akpabio understood from time that Natasha wasn't happy. So if we're going to go by the evidence or the allegations that the names just get me confused sometimes. Natasha Akpoti actually made the allegation where she said the Senate President Godswill Akpabio made advances at her or sexually harassed her, and also said to her that they can come to that property and have special time. And if she turned him down, that is a bruise on his ego. And as long as that's going to happen, he will find a way to discredit her. He will find a way to make life at the Senate, as long as it's the Senate president, difficult for her. One of those will be taking her off of her appointment or her committee as chair, and then openly rubbishes her in the Senate, play balls with her and to get her upset. So to get under her skin, which is exactly what I think he did. All right. So what he did there was to say, you know what, you don't want to play ball with me, right? I'm going to make your life hell in this Senate. So if we're taking the allegations based on what he said, based on what she said, I'm going to make your life hell in this Senate. I will look for every single opportunity to punish you, and I'll push you to the back where no one can see you. And that's been coming for so long. And if you remember, if you check one of our previous videos, you see when we addressed this issue, when she stood up and first time when the whole issue came up, and she said, oh, the 10 of the 10, and the way she stood up with her head. And I said that time that it is somebody who's ready for battle this time, because she's been pushed to the wall until after which she now went to the news and Arise TV, and then she made those, breaking news sort of allegations against the Senate president. So she more or less fell for his schemes by not going to a seat based on their regulations and guidelines, which is what they're using against her right now. So she was going to stand on the right, but she felt certain orders were better than the other orders, and she felt that was a lifeline. And they said, you know what, even though that might be your lifeline, we're not going to let you have that lifeline until you go back. And because you didn't go back to your seat to speak and you disrupt our plenary hearings, then we're going to punish you for it. So she fell for that. And if you realize all the things the senators have been talking about is the fact that she wanted them to change the rules and the guidelines because of her. That's what Akpabio was saying. So you can see how she managed to fall for their schemes, by thinking that when she falls for their scheme, by thinking about when she speaks up, or the 10 will have precedence over anything else, but that didn't work. Okay. Then the third reason, which I think was really, really serious, is bringing the name of the Senate leader, this man, Michael Bamidele Opeyemi, bringing this guy's name into that conversation of sexual harassment. and threat. Okay, let me break that down. In the interview she had at the Rice TV, she mentioned that this man Michael Bamidele Opeyemi called her in the middle of the night, and he said something in this line. She alleges that he called in the middle of the night, and then was talking to her about the issue after the nightclub issue. The nightclub issue was when they were having this debate on the Senate floor, and then Akpabio foolishly said, "Well, distinguished Senator Natasha, this is not a nightclub where we all just talk over each other," and then that created pandemonium for him. And then where the dean of Agbo called him and told him, "You not Nigerians don't like you." That's prior to I think it was End Bad Governance protests. Yeah. So Michael Bamidele called to say to Natasha, "Please speak to your people so they can stop this rancor and all of this," because the pressure was too much on the Senate president. And he also said that, based on our allegation, he also said that, sorry, that if the Senate president goes down, does she not think she will go down too? So, and that's where Natasha said, "Are you threatening me?" And he said, "No." Well, she felt threatened and she screamed and she turned off the phone. And then afterwards, the Senate president called with Michael's phone, and then started talking about the same issue as well again. And then threatened that too as well before she then spoke to her husband, and then he passed the phone to her husband when he was, and then Akpabio was trying to say, "Oh, there is a recommendation for a candidate for a position in Delta State." So now this conversation has now been confirmed by Michael Bamidele here. The last time he spoke on the Senate floor, it's confirmed that, but all he said was that he didn't threaten her, and that if the DSS and whoever have access to those conversations, they can go and dig and they can find out. But we know that's never going to happen. So by bringing this man into this conversation, that obviously raised the storm. If you see what I mean, that raised the storm, because you saying that this man has now become complicit to the threat on your life. So in that way, the Senate would never let that slide. So that's the third bit. She brought the name of the Senate leader into the conversation. She exposed the Senate leader as an accomplice to the threat that this man made against her. Obviously, you have to remember that she said she respected Michael Bamidele here too as well. Now, the fourth reason, she challenged the Senate's tradition that favors the old system. The old system is that you, as a new senator, you sit at the back. You, as an old senator, you sit in front. And then she also called our court-appointed senators, where they do more like a system where they rate themselves and say, "We're being here before you. You go and sit at the back. You have no experience. Stay right back. We don't want to see you yet." Not like, "Oh, we're upcoming, or you sit wherever you like," or a Senate leader appoints this seat and you say, "You sit here, you sit here." So no, so she challenged the old system, the old guard system, where these guys can do and undo because of the power that they have. Remember, the Nigerian Senate is a very distinguished Senate system, and it is a very powerful system. Okay? So because of that alone, they're not going to take it lying down. And because if one of them falls for this, a lot of them will fall for it as well. So they took it personal, and obviously it's a long party line, which will come to be the seventh one, which is what I wanted to. I think there were 7 here. So that's that part of it really. And then the number fifth one is that she challenged the character of corruption in the Senate. The character of corruption, how our Senate is corrupt, because she exposed, the issue when she talked about the committee and how that lady scored as they say that we used to share the money and they didn't like it. She challenged the character of corruption. And if you remember this man here, this man was the one that said to him, this senator, the other senator has come off now. That man was the one that said, "If you're talking about this bill, let's talk about the character of the person tendering the petition." And he talked about how Natasha had alleged in time past that former governor who was a minister at the time had sold the Ajakuta steel mine, So, and then that didn't happen. And then she was trying to do a formal application to say, this person is going to be submitting something to say we need to probe her. So she's done a lot of things that the Senate didn't like. We know. So, but she was openly challenging the character of corruption of the Senate. That's why they came for her character. That's why they attacked her character. And they overwhelmingly didn't say anything. Even the people from the opposition, the PDP, the Labour, the other parties that are in the Senate didn't even speak up. You can see how they went to they brought the spokesperson of the Senate to go to TV, and that one spoke about Senator Natasha and her husband kissing when they came to the Senate again. And that should not have happened. Like, husband and wife kissing is a sin. And they said that's not professional enough. But these guys can actually have women in allegedly have women in private houses where, and they can book appointments with them. You see, so, and then they talk about, decency and character. So she challenged the system of corruption. She challenged the character of corruption in the Senate. Another reason, which you might not really think it is the fact that her husband is also friends with these guys. Now, there's a reason why I'm saying that. When you're friends with politicians, you would have gotten a contract one way or another, whether decently or not. You might have been involved with deals, whether or not you like it. And the husband cannot fight them, because the day he tries to, trust me, you'll find him in prison. Everybody who's spoken against those people, the government, challenged them, that are prominent, that have ever taken things from them, they find themselves in prison. Recently, we remember when Donyo Kukbe, who was free all the time, he just passed today, the breaking news came up, but I want to use him as a reference here as well. It just passed. You remember when he was campaigning for Peter Obi and Dati in 2023? Shortly after that, what happened? Money laundering, corruption came up. He was jailed. There's been another guy who has been speaking against Tinubu as well. He's in jail as well for the same thing, money laundering. So one way or another, they'll find a way to silence her. The threat will come against her and her family, against her husband. He's been a politician. He's been friends with the Senate President here. Do you understand? So there's nothing that stopped them from saying, we're going to come after your family, after your husband, as long as he's taking something from them. Now, I will buttress that same point by saying this. Remember when there's this motivational speaker, his name is right in mind, I can't remember, spoke about how he worked with Tinubu's government for 6 months. And then he talked about a story that happened in previous administration where they wanted him to, do something, and they wanted to inflate the budget, and he refused. Fela Durotoye, that's the man's name. Remember that time when he mentioned the story how he could have been jailed if he had taken, and the other people took that. But one thing they said significantly was that they don't have anything to hold him against. So that's the thing I find really interesting, and I think on that basis they could have actually jailed her husband. Now, the seventh reason is because our long party line, APC. APC. Because they're voting along party lines, she had no chance. She's coming from the minority. APC is a lot more of them in there. So she had no chance. So she stood no chance against these guys. So you can see what the point is when I say 7 reasons. So I'd like for you to keep your comment and let us know if you think the 7th reason are the right way. But again, the 7th one is APC because APC has the majority. And they will do everything to keep the majority. And I think in my previous videos, we've said to you guys that they're bullying her to get her into the APC or join them. And as long as she's not joining them, then they'll make her life frustrating. They'll make her life hell until she joins them. So according to my thinking, this is what I think. For example, this man on the screen here speaking, you can see he started with the character attack, and for me, and they came out overwhelmingly. Now, you might want to include the 8th one because you said nobody else spoke up because they didn't want to get into trouble. If they spoke up for her on our behalf, they'll come for her. That's what I meant by the corruption in the system. She challenged the corruption in the system. If you remember, the people who've spoken about being bullied, the likes of Ireti Kingigbe didn't even speak up. Other women didn't even come up to say, no, 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 we're speaking on our behalf. No, they all kept mute because they know what will happen. So she's challenged the whole system. She's challenged the system of corruption. And she said that. Even when she was fighting back after she was being suspended, she was fighting back. She still mentioned that this injustice. So again, it was, I think maybe we might want to include one more. It's just flashed in my head and I want to include that. That last bit is the fact that because she has challenged them, because she says to them, I'm not going to bow to this pressure. And because she said all the things that she did and she said, I'm telling you, they will look at the system and say, if we allow her, we will not exist in this power. She was literally trying to tell them, I have dominance over you. And they were never going to allow it. Never going to allow it. So, in my opinion, these are some of the reasons why I think Natasha Akpoti had no chance. She stood no chance from beginning. Once she came up on the news and then she said all of those things, once she said those stuff, I knew she had no chance. But again, what Natasha has shown us is the corruption in our Nigerian Senate and how we must fight to defeat it. So again, if you're watching this for the first time, please subscribe to this channel because we'll give you strategic and analytical breakdown of the current happenings in Nigeria, but also encourage Nigerians to be active participants because we need to raise our voice to get the kind of nation that we want to get. If we keep quiet, we will keep being trampled under. The same way they've done to Natasha Akpoti. These guys who have been there for forever. The same way they've challenged our character. This man who's challenged our character. The same way they've done it to us severally. That's the same way they're going to do it to the rest of us. Do you understand? There's a shift, there's a paradigm shift in power soon. Because these old guards will be leaving the stage. Who's going to be the next one to take over? Will it be their trainees whom they've taught the line of corruption how to steal and give to themselves? Or will it be you and I who have the mindset of service, the mindset of growth for our nation where Nigeria works for every single person? Now, you can say it's easier said than done, but I want to challenge you. Until we try, we will not see we will not see the Nigeria we want to see. So again, like, share, subscribe. We need to get this conversation up. We need to make it active. And we need to make sure that come 2027, the likes of these men, Michael Okpemi, Bamidele, the likes of Akpabio, they're not there anymore. We want people who can create laws that will move Nigeria progressively forward in the direction of growth and advancement. That's what we want to see. Okay? What we currently have is a Senate not fit for purpose. It's one of the worst Senates we've ever had, this 10th Senate, under the leadership of this weak man here, Akpabio. So subscribe, share, like, leave your comment in the comment section and let us know what you think about these reasons why Akpoti wouldn't have succeeded anyway, regardless. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye for now.